Okay, so one thing about this topic in this new unit is you should have a lot of background information, which is really nice. That makes learning a lot easier. So, for example, autotrophs. Have we talked about that already this year? Yeah, and this chapter is going to be specifically about autotrophs and mostly about a certain type of autotroph. What do you think it is? Yeah, those photoautotrophs. If you do not know that photo means light, you need to write it down. You might as well memorize it. That's what photons are talking about. So even old photography, in the beginning, to take pictures, the light was what was being captured. Okay, so it all has to do with that word photo, or that root word photo. And then I think you guys are good with autotrophs. They automatically get their energy. And where are they getting, for photoautotrophs, where are they getting their energy from? Awesome, from the sun. Okay, so now, this is huge, right? There's no life on Earth, there's no human life on Earth, for sure, without photosynthesis. And then we use it for our daily lives and stuff that we don't even necessarily need for survival, like gas for running cars, and electricity, and all that. But our society has changed to really rely on these energy sources. So when we talk about these plants, we're talking about agriculture with feeding ourselves as well, okay? And then the fossil fuels. Now, with that movie we just watched, I was trying to emphasize, this stuff is important. Maybe you don't need to use it daily, but it's important stuff that you need to know. Our society in the United States is a democracy. And a democracy requires that we have an educated society, because the educated society is the one that is making the rules. We put people in office that represent us, we make laws, and we do all this stuff. And if we don't understand what's going on, then we're not educated, and we're going to make some bad decisions. And our society already is making a lot of bad decisions when it comes to the state of the earth, right? So the reliance of fossil fuels, for example. But these plants from previous times, as well as some animals, but it's more plants than animals. But you know the School of Rock, right, with the dinosaurs making the oil. They all died about the same time, so they did put down a pretty good rich layer there, but we're using it really fast. So you guys need to learn this stuff so that you can affect what's going to continue happening on Earth, or what we're going to stop doing. Or are we going to invent some really cool things to solve our problems? That's what science is all about, solving problems. Okay, so besides photoautotrophs, we have chemioautotrophs. You don't need to know much about them at all, except know what the word means and know that they exist. That's all you have to remember. But these are also autotrophs. They don't get the energy from the sun. They get their energy from other inorganic compounds or molecules or even elements. Iron, for example, and sulfur. Some bacteria that live in extreme environments can collect those and use them to actually do a synthesis reaction to making ATPs. Okay, so it's pretty crazy. For example, there's some of these deep down in the oceans that collect methane gas, and then there's these ones in hot springs. And again, we're only talking about bacteria that are these chemioautotrophs. Okay, the light spectrum. Now, I'm hoping you're pulling from some old learning back in middle school or even elementary school. Do you remember the light spectrum? How do you remember those colors? Do you remember those? Yeah, Roy G. Biv, right? I have it over here. Roy G. Biv. So we got red, orange, yellow, and so forth, right? Now notice that it's backwards this time, because I also want you to start paying attention to the wavelengths. And the color of light that we see, that energy, these wavelengths, varies depending on the color we see. So going backwards, starting at violet and indigo and blue, these ones, notice, look at the waves that they send of light that goes to our eyes or goes to the cells and plants where they use that energy. What about the wavelengths? You measure them crest to crest. Look at this. So what is happening as we move across the color spectrum to the wavelengths? Are the wavelengths getting longer or are they getting shorter? Yeah, they're getting longer. So red, and it doesn't pack as much energy as violet and blue, but also this is easier for the cells to handle. Sometimes when things are giving you too much energy too fast, they can be damaging also, okay? So that's your spectrum. And then all this energy, it starts like with gamma rays and X-rays, then ultraviolet, which is very harmful to cells. Then we get our light spectrum, then infrared, and radio, radar, TV, all those types of waves. Okay, now, this is commonly misunderstood, so I really want to make sure you get this. So when you look at the pine tree out there, or our cool little lime tree in the back of the room, we see green wavelengths of light, because what is the plant cells doing to the green? Why are we getting to see the green? What's happening to these rays, these colors? So the green light is the green wavelengths are being reflected, and so then your eyes can register that, right? And remember, green is not a primary color, so there's some mixture going on here with the blue and the yellow, right? So I want to really make sure you understand that. You need to memorize right now what the pigment is. So what's the pigment that is green when we see it and collects this energy from the sun? Yeah, what is it, you guys? Chlorophyll. Okay, it's written right there. You guys got to know it like that. Also start to recognize these patterns. Chlorophyll is inside chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are the organelles inside cells, and that's where the light is being collected. It's where photosynthesis is occurring. Okay, the other thing I want you guys to understand is the deal with the leaves changing color. So you can see these fall colors right here. If there was still a bunch of chlorophyll in those leaves, in those cells, you wouldn't see the lighter yellow. You wouldn't see even that red very well, because the green would be masking it, because there's a lot more of it, and it's kind of a darker color. Okay? But if you look a lot, you can, at the leaves on trees, even the pine needle leaves, all the different things that you see that are doing photosynthesis that have these pigments, you can see there's a lot of variation. You also notice that what happens is we reveal, so it's not like this really changed colors. What happened is the chlorophyll is a water-soluble molecule that the plant stopped making, and because it's water-soluble, it got bleached from the sun and or just got washed away with some time. So the plants stop making this, getting ready for the winter, and the chlorophyll gets washed away or dissolves, breaks down, and what's left are these accessory pigments that are yellow, orange, even some purple a little bit sometimes you see. And the reason that they don't get washed away is because they're an oil-based molecule. They're a non-polar molecule. So the sun doesn't fade them as quick, they don't get dissolved by the water, and they remain. But the leaves also are going to die, right? So these are stopped being made too, but they just persist longer. And so we get to see them. But what happens is, why the different pigments? It allows the cells to collect in different areas of the light spectrum. So it's allowing the cells to get energy from different wavelengths, not just the one wavelength area. So they're more generalist than you might have thought. Okay, so now, right now memorize that there are two different processes that make up photosynthesis. They happen in the chloroplast. You're going to get to do a little sketch, a little drawing when I get done here for the end of this lecture, and you'll get very familiar with the chloroplast. But right now I want you to know there's two. There's the light reactions mentioned right here, and this happens during the light. It absorbs the energy from the sun or light bulbs and collects water molecules, and it splits the water into hydrogen and oxygen. That's where the oxygen comes from, that's released by the plants. The light energy is converted to a chemical energy, And it powers sugar production in the Calvin cycle. The Calvin cycle is the next process. So first, this is just light reactions. Happens in the thylakoid. That's a membrane part of the chloroplast. You'll see it in a few minutes. Okay, before I go on to the Calvin cycle, there's this little thing right here, and there's even some crazy bacteria that don't use water. They use hydrogen sulfide gas, H2S, to get their hydrogen, and that splitting helps them with powering their type of photosynthesis. You don't need to remember that. Again, I just want to stress that life is adapted to all these different environments, and they do very similar processes with what they have available to them. Okay, so the Calvin cycle is the second part. The Calvin cycle is also taking place in the chloroplast. It's taking place in a part called the stroma, which you'll see when you do your sketch. It's outside the thylakoids, but inside the membrane of the chloroplast. And that's the final process. Now, what does it do? The energy that was made from the light reaction, that chemical energy, powers this Calvin cycle to make the sugar. And this is also where the carbon dioxide comes in. So that's your second part of photosynthesis, the Calvin cycle. Okay, so now the rate. This is 4.5. This is your last section that you will read for your reading log. And I want you to think about this for a second. What do you think is going to influence how fast photosynthesis happens? What would influence how fast photosynthesis happens? More details. What about the energy?
Light.
Okay, the amount of light. Yes. If there's more light or if there's less light. What else can influence how fast photosynthesis happens? Okay, the overall temperature in the environment can influence it. And are there enzymes and things needed helping these reactions and stuff happen? Absolutely. Do enzymes work at better temperatures? They have an optimal. What else can influence the rate of photosynthesis? Okay, how much carbon dioxide there is? How much what else? Maybe the oxygen can affect it, but that's a byproduct of it. It's not a reactant coming in. What about the amount of water? What about the pH? All these things might affect it or does affect it. So let's look at this one for light. So look at the graph. This is something that's going to be on your practicum. You're going to have to get very familiar with analyzing data. So look carefully at this graph. What do you see? Read it. Becca, you need to stay with me. Okay, so does it make sense? So as light intensity increases, what does increase? The rate of photosynthesis. Does it go on indefinitely? Or does it level off? Absolutely. You can only shine so much light at something, right? It's going to hit a saturation point, right? So those things that need to be going on and happening within the cell, they can only move so fast. So you can only have, you get to this brightness that's working as fast as it can. Okay, but try not to look if you have it in front of you. How do you think temperature is going to look? What's the graph going to look like for temperature, do you think? Okay. So that, yes, it is a range. You're right. The bell curve is showing you that. So I would need to get a measuring device here to do this accurately, but it looks like about halfway between 20 and 25 degrees Celsius is the best temperature for photosynthesis. That's about room temperature. Okay? And do you think the plants that are more adapted to the warm environment, do you think maybe that shifts for them? Do you think the plants that are more adapted to cold environments, do you think that shifts for them? Yeah. Okay, so this last part I'm not going to make you read, but I want you to at least know this, and I think you already do, but I wanted to make sure you didn't forget. So you guys have got to understand about how photosynthesis and the atmosphere, how they are related, right? With the amount of oxygens, the amount of carbon dioxide and things like that. And so the amount of oxygen has changed in our atmosphere on Earth, as well as the carbon dioxide, where it kind of goes in these up and down flows. However, since the 1800s, we are seeing a rapid increase, and actually we see an increase since the 1800s. We see a more rapid once the Industrial Revolution started, first in Europe, then here, and now we're having industrial revolutions in some of the once, or maybe there's some of them are still considered like the third world countries. And so we're releasing more and more and more and more carbon dioxide into the earth. Now, I was talking about politics a little bit earlier. So you guys need to get the information, and you need to then decide if you want to be a part of some of the like activists. If you want to try and solve problems, you can. Just because you're not 18 yet and you can't vote doesn't mean that you still can't change this world and that you still can't influence things. You guys can. And right now, I think, with the political state right now kind of being so, what's the right word? I guess I can't think of the right word, but what I'm trying to say is when people get upset about something, right, and they want to change something, they do. And you guys, it's a kind of cool, fun time right now to jump on a bandwagon that you care about, because people are right now are willing to work and do things. When the society's kind of status quo and everything seems to be fine, then people don't worry about it and people don't do anything about it. But right now we have like two different parties, right? And it doesn't matter what side you're on, if you're on any side, or maybe you're kind of in the middle. It doesn't have to be cut and dry, this side or that side. But I would hope that you guys would want to get involved with things that you want to care about and you want to do. Because right now, I think the world is going to listen more than any other time right now, at least since I've been alive. When there's problems arise, that's when we fix things. I don't know if you guys realize that we had an oil crisis way back in the 70s. In the 1970s, we had a huge oil crisis. So what happened? All the car companies started making really efficient cars, smaller cars. Then the economy got better and better, and even though oil was expensive, we could afford it. So then the cars went the other way. So the market, the demand, the things that you guys buy, the things you guys want to participate with affects what we do, okay? So empower yourself and go for it. One more little thing, though, I want you guys to get the facts. I highly recommend looking up NASA's websites and NOAA, which is the National Oceanic... NOAA. Oh, no, I'm going to blame. No, anyway, look it up. Find it. Oceanic, atmospheric, something. I can't remember the whole name of it. They have real data there. One thing I want to make sure you guys understand is don't get caught up in the baloney. You go find out what is true and what isn't true, because there's a lot of propaganda and crap being put out there for people to believe that is not right, okay? So you guys go figure out what is right, and then you make your decisions. And if things need to be done, do it. So this last one, here I'm kind of talking about here, a vital future to life on Earth. We have mass extinctions that will happen. No matter what we do, there will be mass extinctions. Hopefully there's millions of years between them, though, right? And right now we're starting in an incline of a mass extinction. So what we choose to do could possibly affect what happens, how long it takes to happen. Hopefully you guys are, long gone naturally before anything really, really gets crazy. But things are getting pretty bad in a lot of places with the climate change. Here, so we just had that hurricane that hit down in, it actually went across the whole Central America. And that was the most southern hurricane this late. I think I can't remember. You just look it up for me. I think it was the most southern hurricane. It was also a late hurricane for that side of where it started. Again, evidence, climate is changing, okay? And then the other thing for you guys to realize is if we're affecting it, we need to do something about it. Otherwise, we just get caught up in it also with the mass extinction. It won't just be about the redwoods, right? And most of the plants, or lots of the plants, will survive. The animals and the food chain are going to be the ones that are having problems. The last two bullets, again, is just talking about how some plants are a little bit different and they're adapted to their own particular environment. I'm not going to worry about you knowing those last two bullets. Okay, so this will be the last slide for today. So I want to mention respiration right now because I don't want you to separate them so much in your mind. So how are they related? Well, first, this is also something you should already know. Do you guys remember these terms? Synthesis and decomposition reactions. Do you guys remember this? So which one is photosynthesis? Is it making a molecule or is it breaking a molecule down? It's making a molecule. What molecule is it making? It's making sugar. It's releasing some oxygen in the process, but it's making sugar. The name, photo. Do you hear it? Okay, so that one's easy to memorize, right? What do you think cellular respiration is? Do you think it's decomposition? Is it going to break down a bigger molecule into some littler ones? Yeah, it's going to break down sugar into what? ATP. Okay, these little energy carrying or transferring molecules. One last thing. Most of the time, students easily get, and not just students, people out there in the real world, okay, walking around. I guess this is still the real world, but you know what I mean. They provide energy. You guys, most people get that cellular respiration provides energy to the organism. They might not know it's in the form of ATP, but you guys do. But they forget this other crucial thing. And what? Photosynthesis provides ATP and, I'm sorry, it is photosynthesis first. Okay, but cellular respiration provides ATP and the carbon, just the carbon molecules that we need. Are we made out of carbon? Now back up, because I said photosynthesis, even though I'm talking about cellular respiration. Where did the carbon molecules, where'd they come from? From photo, and we ate them, right? Sugar, okay? And so we got our carbon from sugar, yeah, from eating these carbon molecules made by the trees or the plants. Okay, now you look at the big, beautiful pine tree. Where did it get its carbon from?